of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Chistero. Chapter 117. The Captain called it! Blinking at his oldest ward's request, he found himself smiling and nodding before gesturing that the younger man and his lover follow him through the service bar, into the kitchen, and up the stairs which led to their home.
The kids have been flooding my phone with all the fun things you guys got up to during the sleepover.
He chuckled at them whilst they made their way up the familiar flight of stairs, their shoes kicked off as they'd done 1,000 times before.
All of you drawing on Keigo's face whilst he was sleeping isn't something I can condone, but
it was hilarious.
Tomra finished for him, a playful smile glinting across his lips and eyes. Damn! It never failed to warm his heart and soothe his mind to see both of them so content, happy, in love.
And besides, it's not as though Featherhead didn't find the whole thing funny either. Plus, it took Rumi threatening him with a scouring pad to convince his crazy ass to wash off the I love KFC under on his cheek.
Which, in his defense, he only did because Keigo called him a burnt chicken nugget first.
The shorter teen snickered as they ushered him to their oldest couch, where Tomra sat down whilst his partner scurried to their room.
All's fair in prank love and war, right?
Right.
He agreed, his eyes rolling fondly.
So, I take it that everything is okay, with you guys.
He hedged, his smile dimming a touch. With everything going on, he was certain they were fine. He was sure that they'd been leaning on each other as yesterday had come into effect, but he couldn't help worrying. He cared about them too much not to worry.
Fine might be an understatement.
Blinking, he watched as his first ward veritably skipped around love-worn sofa to sit at his right as Tomra was on his left. He had his A3 artist's portfolio in hand. He was holding it with his left hand and rifling through it with his right. He pulled out 2 thick manila envelopes. One was addressed to Aizawa Dabi, the other Azamra Tomra.
Wait. Okay, so first of all, you know how you've provided us with every opportunity to get our lives together and channel our energies into something positive for our futures?
The turquoise-eyed man said whilst a smile desperately tried to scrawl across his handsome roguish features. Could it be?
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd do.
He played along, his tone indulgent as his excitement mounted. He tried not to play the role of pushy parent, however, to think that his wards would get the same opportunities as him and his care-center siblings, to believe that they could move past the trauma of their childhoods to grow into adults who loved life, could apply the skills they'd nurtured, and pursue careers that would make them happy. Well,
we both got in at MU. We start there in October.
Dabby smiled, a mixture of disbelief and joy smoothing across his face whilst jazzily shaking the envelopes for him to see.
I'm going to study digital art, and Tomra is in for coding. We've got full scholarships, too, so we know that you've been squirreling away money to help us.
He said the words he'd just spoken still sinking in.
And we want you to spend that cash on you, on Toshi-kun, on Toshi-ji, help, on anything and everything you want, okay? But not on the customers or the cafe, alright? We want you to have something for a change, unless you finally bankrupted yourself, You crazy nuts ogre.
They were both in. They could fulfill their dreams. They could go into a business together to create their own... They could develop their own video games. It was a dream that they'd talked about so often. Sucking in a breath, he roped both of them into a hug and pulled them into his sides, his lips placing a chaste paternal kiss on each of their foreheads.
Guys, he breathed, I'm so proud. You deserve the world, and I couldn't be happier for you. Both of you. Not that I ever doubted you would, not even for a second.
He grinned as he released them.
I may or may not have already bought a few My Son Goes to MU pennants to post at the cafe windows,
He told them, the pair blinking and blushing through more laughter.
It's just like you to have done something like that, Sho.
His oldest ward chuffed, his head shaking ruefully before his smile softening. He reached for Tomra's hand.
Oh, and there's another pretty big thing we need to tell you about.
Their fingers were laced together and resting across his thighs.
Wait. Where? Had they? It looks as though you were right, Cat Dad.
Dobby murmured, his tone fond, as he looked towards his lover with a gaze which spoke volumes about the depth of feeling he was swaddled in. That same look was mirrored by the crimson ones looking back at him. Ah!
You.
He somehow managed, his own hands laying atop the conjoined one.
Wedding bells.
He grinned, his tone raspy. Wedding bells! They replied in unison, the three of them huddling together. So much for being worried about them, huh? Checking his phone, his lips quivering into a deeper smile, Hitoshi then repocketed the device before grabbing the pitcher of lemonade he'd promised to get, his violet eyes momentarily looking to the door which led to their home's first set of stairs. He was so happy that his three brothers could have this time together. In the excitement of everything, it was good to know that the little nucleus, which made up their cafe-based family, could still come together as an awesome foursome. That the special bond between the four of them was something precious and sacred and just for them because, well, even though Dabini had his blood family, now they were, sadly, strangers. There was a lot of hurt, pain, and trauma to overcome, and so, just like him, Tomuni and Shoni, the flame quirk user didn't have anyone he knew or understood the kind of loneliness that they'd all been eaten up by in one way or another. Until they'd come together at the Northern Echo. Until they'd found solace in each other, their other loved ones, either dead or taken from them by cruel circumstances. Sometimes when he spoke with his counselor, and when he was allowed to speak to his mom, he kind of felt guilty. Guilty because his dad was dead. Should he be laughing, smiling, living, and looking up to Shoni for a role model? Guilty because Olga-san was in prison. If it had not been for looking after him, she could have met someone else remarried without worrying if he'd get along with his stepfather, right? So, was it okay for him to live, to make friends, to enjoy food, to cuddle with his brothers as they watched movies? These had been questions that had plagued him, but true to form, the second his primary caregivers had noticed the darkening circles under his eyes, the frequency of his nightmares, well, they'd bundled it up, they'd sat together in their home, and they'd made him feel safe, protected, and understood. He'd been enrobed in love, acceptance, and relief. For who better than Tomuni, Dabini, and their cat dad to know how he felt? To understand the difficulties of moving forward into an uncertain future and the worry that you shouldn't be happy because those you love couldn't be. To wake up at night in a cold sweat, the face of the person, the people you miss, nothing but a dream. To appreciate that you can't control your circumstances as much as you'd like. They were such good brothers, and now, right now, the two lovers were telling Shoni about their Musutafu University acceptance packs and announcing further good news. Good news that they'd whispered to him last night when they'd come into Shoto's room to check on them all and tuck them in. A wonderful secret to keep all to himself until the older boys shared it with everyone later today. How in the world he'd gone from not attending a wedding to becoming the ring bearer for two, he'd never know. It was nice to be wanted. It was great to be loved. And so he did his best every day not to feel guilty, to listen to his mother's advice, to remember her smile. My darling, you deserve the world. You amaze me every day. You are stronger than you think and greater than you know. Your father and me, we couldn't be prouder. So you keep doing your best. Listen to Shouta. Enjoy your life. Love it as much as I love you, okay? And don't be afraid to talk to me, to him, and all those wonderful friends and family we have now, all right? You mustn't ever be scared to speak your truth, ask for help, and take it. If I had, well, we shouldn't dwell on the past, should we? What is that show always says, Chuckling quietly to himself, his eyes still locked on the door, his biological parent's smile blooming in his mind, he murmured a gentle, "You're not your past. It's the future that's important," before straightening his shoulders and making his way back into the cafe proper to enjoy the party that was in full swing, his own smile broadening as Oberoni whisked him up and under the cloud. "Hi, little dude. Let me help you dish out that ambrosia, okay?" "What? Okay." Yagi Toshinori hadn't always considered himself blessed. "Toshiji, I got a muffin for you." Being born quirkless, his mother's death had shaken him, his father's indifference had hardened him, and then he'd met Nana.
Oh, I got you a cup of lemonade too. This has got hibiscus in it. Or is it strawberry? I'm not that sure, but it'll be yummy anyway, so who cares, right?
The training had been brutal, Gran Torino unrelenting, but his dream of becoming a symbol, of helping people to smile, of bringing them together, had been worth it.
Hey, Ji-chan! You want to come over here and play Uno with us? Natsumo-kun's never played it before!
Then he'd watched her die. He'd fled the country not through cowardice, but to gain experience far from Shigaraki's vile reach. He'd loved. He'd nearly lost himself. He'd plowed himself into All Might and decided that was it. Being a symbol was his life. It was all he'd ever be.
What? No! Ji-chan! We need you to be the valiant king in our D&D game! Shouta has to see you in action!
And then he'd gotten a call whilst beginning his morning patrol one sunny morning, just over 2 years ago. A member of the public had been attacked by a group of low-level thugs in one of the shadier parts of his hometown. He'd rushed to the area, his persona fastened tightly in place, his body primed to intervene to ensure the civilian safety.
Can I go now?
Only to find a man who'd knocked the wind and popped
Straight at him.
A man who was muscular, yet slender, the onyx of his eyes glinting with a kind of indignation. There was no reverence there, no worship, no... Aizawa Shouta had just seen a man flancing into preen and had not been impressed with the great and powerful in the slightest. God, to be acknowledged as a person, to be seen, had felt freeing.
Sorry, my little cuties, but your Ji-chan is needed upstairs pronto by order of the cat dad, okay?
He'd been blessed, and his blessings, it seemed, were showing no signs of stopping.
Thank you, Namu-dan.
He smiled, truly smiled, his eyes glinting fondly as he ruffled Katsuki's hair and swallowed the last of the lemonade Denki had brought for him before popping the last bite of his favorite white chocolate and blueberry muffin into his mouth. Then his head inclining at the R-rated pro before quickly checking the cheerfully decorated room, a good once over, he made his way toward the service bar whilst laughter, chatting, and singing followed behind him. Oh! If someone had told him 2 years ago that he could be this happy, this content, well, he wouldn't have dared to hope or dream. But who needed to do such things when reality was what it was?
Sorry to drag you away from the party, Deadbite. This won't take long, though.
They'd not used an eagle-sized amount of tissues, however, after much hugging, congratulating, and copious snarky commentary a la Dobby, Shouta had smiled delightedly when they told him that they wanted to tell the #1 Pru their good news, privately too. Toshinori was his unofficially official uncle, after all, and the blonde had kept all the promises he'd made to him, hadn't he? For the usually over-enthusiastic man always tried his best not to gush over him too often. He gave him space when he needed it without being offended or sulking, most times. The big dork. And they talked, really talked about things that were important to him. That were important to both of them, which, considering their unintentionally shared tragic history involving his paternal grandmother, he'd been genuinely surprised at how quickly his loathing had turned to liking, how rapidly his anger and resentment had boiled away to reveal a sense of empathy. Empathy born from the knowledge that they were both victims of circumstances that had been forced upon them by others. It was strange, really, but they'd somehow found that trauma to be something that had brought them closer together as opposed to tearing them apart. And now here the big lug was, owlishly blinking away and zipping around the three of them like some hyper-vigilant mother hen.
Toshi, calm down. Everything's fine. Better than fine, honestly.
Shouta soothed, his hands latching onto the other's brawny arm to halt him, the pro's head still pivoting this way and that whilst they all chuckled at his well-meaning concern.
Now come and sit down before you accidentally crash through a wall again. My love, that's only ever happened once, and I did apologize profusely for it, didn't I?
Snorting and rolling his eyes, he similarly moved to sit. Just as they'd done with their cat dad, they had Toshiji resting in the middle of their favorite couch so that he and Nabi could be either side of him.
We wanted to tell you 2 pretty big pieces of news, Ji-san.
He told the man, his neon blue eyes moving to his crimson ones as he smiled at him.
We Copy me. We've gotten into MU on the courses we wanted.
He began, the flush of pleasure lighting his uncle's face, causing his heart to flutter a little.
Oh, and we're getting married too, so wow!
Hey, what's the ribs, big guy? Ugh!
His partners similarly huffed, the pair of them veritably crushed against the man's expensive white muscle shirt-clad form, their feet nowhere near the tatami mat-covered floor, whilst their guardian took ruthless advantage of their immobility, his phone snapping photos as Toshinori gushed. Oh, boys, oh, this is incredible! Congratulations! The number one pro cried, his eyes streaming happy tears as he cuddled them. Oh, you must let me treat you, please, he furthered, whilst he and his fiancée finally rolled their eyes.
Oh, fine, but nothing over the top, okay, Deadmite?
Yeah, geez, son, I'd settle for being able to breathe right now, you know?
He laughed out, whilst the sun-kissed man continued to preen and bounce on the balls of his feet, amidst Shota's dry commentary of the scene playing out before him. I'm to have a nephew and a nephew-in-law. How lucky am I, eh? How lucky were all of them, really?